Do you believe in monsters? Have you ever seen a real monster? For hundreds of years, people have encountered unexplained creatures that have no scientific explanation, leaving people to create their own theories. Around 2,000 years ago, gold miners in the Gobi Desert unearthed large skeletons with beaks and claws. Without a sound scientific answer, they created one. The griffin, a half-eagle, half-lion who protected hidden gold. In Japan, they speak of a giant underground catfish called Namatsu, who creates earthquakes whenever it stirs. Although most monsters are considered to be make-believe, earlier this year, a chicken woman called Momo sparked fear on the internet. Story after story appeared on the news warning us of the dangers in this online Momo craze. The Momo monster would induce kids to commit suicide as part of an online dare. Many monsters that once lurked in the closet or under the bed now prowl on social media platforms. But some monsters aren't those of myths at all. There are constantly unidentified creatures being captured on video and reported all around the world. Some are very hard to discredit, propelling us into the possibility that some monsters may in fact be real. There have been multiple sightings of these strange creatures called the night crawlers. These creatures are extremely thin, white humanoids with no discernible arms. This video of the strange creatures was taken in Fresno, California in the 1990s. The video was featured on the second episode of the Sci-Fi Channel's Fact or Faked, where they set out to debunk this footage. However, after a series of tests, they were unable to. So it's considered legitimate footage to this day. This next clip was taken by a home security camera outside of Yosemite National Park. And this is a more recent clip taken from a man in Poland. There are numerous sightings of these night crawlers, but only few videos with any evidence. Others believe they are aliens or results of strange mutations. Some Native Americans in the surrounding areas of Fresno claim these creatures have been on Earth for a long time and are of extraterrestrial descent from a planet that consists of mostly swampland, which is why they have long legs, made to walk through such terrains. They also say they are here for a reason. They are said to come and help man during the awakening and to assist man in the connection between us and nature. The nightcrawler is known as a cryptid. A cryptid is a living, breathing animal or being that is not commonly believed to exist, although it may. Examples include Loch Ness and Bigfoot, among others. The nightcrawler is becoming more and more popular throughout the world. In Navajo culture, a skinwalker is a type of harmful witch who has the ability to turn into, possess, or disguise themselves as an animal. The Navajo tend to keep their culture to themselves and consider it dangerous to speak openly about the mythical creatures with outsiders because skinwalkers are known as witches in Navajo culture. These are creatures who are at one point a human. Tradition suggests they'll steal your skin and can transform into any kind of animal, including a human. Supposedly staring into their eyes is how they absorb themselves into your body and how they control you. Skinwalkers are seen most frequently as wolves, coyotes, foxes, eagles, owls, and crows. There is actually a ranch in Utah called Skinwalker Ranch because there's been so many sightings there. They can run far greater distances than people. They're said to be able to run up to 200 miles at a time and are able to run faster than a car. When they're not transformed into animals, witnesses have described them as hollowed out creatures that look like dogs. It's also said that you can kill a skinwalker by calling them by their true original name. Skinwalkers also have other powers, including reading others' minds, controlling their thoughts and behavior, causing disease and illness, destroying property, and even death. Those who have talked of their encounters with these evil beings describe a number of ways to know if a skinwalker is near. They make sounds around homes such as knocking on windows, banging on walls, and scraping noises on the roof. On some occasions, they've been caught peering through windows. More often than not, they appear in front of vehicles in hopes of causing an accident. They supposedly kill out of greed, anger, envy, spite, or revenge. It also robs graves for personal wealth to collect much-needed ingredients for use in black magic. These witches live on the unexpired lives of their victims, and they must continually kill or perish themselves. Now let's take a look at some of the supposed footage of skinwalkers circulating the web. Skinwalkers and other witches have been blamed for all manner of unexpected struggles and tragedies through the years, including sickness, drought, poor crops, and sudden death. Even smaller or individual problems such as windstorms, the death of livestock, and reversal of fortune were often believed to be the work of a witch. Zombie is derived from the Louisiana Creole or Haitian Creole word zombie. Although the word first appeared in English in the 1870s, it wasn't the subject of much interest among English speakers until the 1940s. Zombies first came to life in Haiti during the 17th and 18th centuries. Deaths among slaves were high. Initially, it was believed that once slaves died, they would be freed from slavery and return back to Africa. But throughout time, the legends evolved into the practice of voodoo, with Haitians believing that the undead were controlled by witchery to perform evil tasks. And the word zombie is thought to derive from the Congo word, nzambi, meaning spirit of a dead person. According to Peter Cummings, a neuropathologist at Boston University and also an advisor to the Zombie Research Society, there is such a thing as a zombie-like state. It's called Kluver-Bucy syndrome or Clover-Bucy syndrome. If one took a look at someone afflicted with this disease, you might in fact think they were a zombie. Cummings said the syndrome induces inability to recognize objects, distractibility, and dementia. In their catatonic state, they can become quite violent as well. There's another disease called encephalitis lethargica, which is an extremely rare condition but will also put humans in a zombie-like state. In fact, there was an outbreak of this disease connected with the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918. People who suffered of this began to hallucinate, entered a stupor, and became catatonic. Believe it or not, we have on record an actual experiment where zombie dogs were scientifically engineered. In 1940, Russian scientists released a video of several dogs' heads that were kept alive for several hours, wiggling their ears in response to sounds and even licking their mouths. The scientists claim that they were keeping the animals alive by an artificially blood-circulated system.
I should like to tell you that I have seen some of the experiments shown in this film actually carried out at the All-Russian Physiological Congress. As you can imagine, technique is everything. The isolated head lives on for hours and reacts to external stimuli. The isolated head even reacts to light and to sound.
But there's even more recent cases where scientists created zombie dogs. In 2005, American scientists rapidly killed a pack of dogs by flushing all the blood from their bodies and replacing it with oxygen and sugar-filled saline. This is all according to research at the University of Pittsburgh. 3 hours later, the team gave the dogs a blood transfusion and an electric shock. These dogs were indeed resurrected. But if a real zombie apocalypse were to ever happen, a peer-reviewed student journal finds that zombies would take the Earth's population down to a mere 273 survivors in just 100 days. The students calculated that it would take 20 days for a single zombie to start an epidemic of noticeable proportions.
Atrás, ¿no? Porra, mano, que maré, hein? Morreu. Morreu. Morreu, vai morrer essa porra. Aí ninguém, mano. Parece uma polícia aí. Se ele saísse da frente, dava pra você dar uma arrancada e sair fora, né? É, mas aí, vou largar um disco aí, ó. Dá pra sair? É, mas eu não. Olha lá, ele deitou. Vai por aqui, ó. Vai por ali, ó. É, mas agora, aí vou chegar lá e segura, né? Será que eu tenho que parar aqui, será não? Ixi, lá vem ele. Eita, morreu. Dessa vez vai morrer.
To many, both in Haiti and elsewhere, zombies are very real. They're not a joke, and they're something to be taken very seriously. Belief in magic and witchcraft is widespread throughout Haiti and the Caribbean, often in the form of religions, such as voodoo. Haitian zombies were said to be people brought back from the dead, and sometimes controlled through magical means by voodoo priests. Sometimes the zombification was done as punishment, striking fear to those who believed that they could be abused even after death. For decades, Westerners considered zombies little more than fictional movie monsters. But that assumption was questioned in the 1980s when a scientist named Wade Davis claimed to have found a powder that could create zombies, thus providing a scientific basis for zombie stories. It's a powerful neurotoxin called tetrodotoxin, which can be found in several animals, including pufferfish. Davis wrote a book on the topic called The Serpent and the Rainbow, which was later made into a horror film. Although a Dybbuk is considered more of a paranormal entity, it still fits in the monster realm with the acts of possession and the like. In Jewish mythology, a Dybbuk is a malicious possessing spirit believed to be the dislocated soul of a dead person. It supposedly leaves the host's body once it has accomplished its goal. Dybbuk comes from the Hebrew word which means the act of sticking, adhere to, or to cling. Although the concept of the Dybbuk has been around for many generations, it wasn't until recently when it gained a tremendous amount of traction because of an infamous Dybbuk box that got a lot of publicity. Since then, numerous people are purchasing Dybbuk boxes and opening them online. Is anybody else here with me? I just want to talk. Can you talk to me? Now again, I'm gonna have to play all this stuff back, but that sounded like, what do you want? I just want to talk. Can we talk? I don't mean to disturb you. Is it okay if we talk? I'm pretty sure that just said, who are you? I'm Chris, and I just want to talk. Is that okay? Listen, if you don't want to talk, give me some sort of sign. Oh, shit. Listen, if you don't want to talk, give me some sort of sign. Oh, shit. One of the scariest and strangest monsters on record comes from my home state of Florida. The area of Titusville has been on the map for numerous strange creature sightings, among others. Just this year, in fact, a woman posted a picture of the carcass of a 3-foot lizard-like creature that she found in her backyard. The assumptions reigned free on social media. However, the species is still undetermined. More than 40 years before the Chupacabra case of 1996 in South Florida, a very strange and unidentified creature was sucking the blood out of animals all around the area. Farmers were finding pigs, cows, dogs, cats, chickens, and other animal carcasses completely drained of their blood. They had only 2 small puncture wounds near their necks. This was taking place from around 1960 to 1967. The bizarre killings left the townspeople in fear with no answers. It happened less throughout the years and eventually seemed to stop altogether by 1972. To this day, it's unknown as to what kind of predator it was, but interestingly enough, the Dannenberg monster sightings happened in the same place where one of the very first appearances was made by the Chupacabra. It's described as a creature 4 or 5 feet tall with large eyes, spikes down its back, and long claws. This beast, people claimed, was responsible for killing and draining the blood of livestock, an act that earned its name, which is Spanish for goat sucker. Eyewitness sightings have been claimed in Puerto Rico and have since been reported as far north as Maine and as far south as Chile, and even being spotted outside the Americas in countries like Russia and the Philippines. Here's some of the supposed footage of an actual Chupacabra sighting.
This is from the sheriff's cruiser. Last Friday, hours before sunset, the two deputies were checking fence lines near Cuero when they stumbled across that alleged creature of the night. Now, one of the deputies called it hairless with a long snout, short front legs, and long back legs. He said it's about the size of a coyote, but when he froze the video and saw its profile, he knew he was not dealing with a coyote at all, and helped solve the mystery of the chupacabra. Now, again, if you don't know what this animal is supposed to do, apparently it has two fangs, and that animal had fangs, and a couple others killed in the area that look like that animal also have those two front fangs. And in the area, goats and chickens have died, and their death was the two fang marks in the neck and the blood sucked completely out.
Reports were coming in so often from the state of Florida that they formed a special task force to investigate the cattle killing mysteries. This was in March 1997. It was obvious to officials that the killings were not being done by any conventional means. Some suspected it was an extraterrestrial connection, while others suspected devil worshippers. That's when the mention of the chupacabra was made, because of the strange puncture wounds left behind on the victims. Hundreds and hundreds of animals were killed, yet the mystery was never solved, just like many other monster sightings. January marks the anniversary of one of the strangest monster sightings in the history of Texas. It's what's known as the Big Bird. Around 40 years ago, citizens from San Antonio to the Rio Grande Valley reported sightings of an enormous, man-sized bird that was seen soaring through the skies. It all started in 1975 when two police deputies had an early morning encounter with what was described as a giant bird with a 10-foot wingspan flying over their patrol cars. Later that day, two teenage girls named Tracy Lawson and Jackie Davis stated they observed a scary 5-foot-tall bird in their yard. Their parents discovered some enormous 3-toed tracks the next day that were featured on a local news broadcast. Mass hysteria soon erupted. On January 7th, a Brownsville man named Alverco Gajardo heard something slam into his trailer, and when he went outside to inspect it, he claimed that he stood face to face with a giant bird, but not a regular bird, a bird from perhaps another planet. One week later, Texas resident Armando Grimaldo experienced the most terrifying encounter to date. When he was sitting outside one evening, suddenly he heard the sound of great flapping wings and was attacked from above by a winged beast that scratched him and ripped his clothes, attacking him with brute force. He was later transported to the county hospital in a state of shock. Other notable reports include that of two sisters who spotted the big bird in Brownsville on the 18th, as well as two other soldiers who had a sighting on a ranch near Petite in the same day. At one point, everyone from local radio station owners to oil tycoons were offering a reward for the capture of the flying monster. I can't help but think of the Thunderbird when I hear stories of the large Birdman. The Thunderbird is a legendary creature in certain Native American histories and cultures. It's considered a supernatural being of power and strength. It's especially important and frequently depicted in the art, songs, and oral histories of many Pacific Northwest coast cultures. It is also found in various forms among some peoples of the American Southwest, East Coast of the United States, Great Lakes, and Great Plains. In Indonesia, they believe in a giant bat that has a wingspan of 28 feet. This giant bat is called ahul. It is said to live in the deepest parts of the jungles and can be found across most of Indonesia. Subspecies are also found on nearby islands. For example, a presumed cousin to ahul, the robin, has a long snout, large wings, and a large, thin crest. The ahul, though, has a distinct face that has features of both a chimpanzee and a bat. Large dark eyes, red-skinned wings, large claws on its forearms, and covered in gray fur. To this day, reports are filed all over the world with supposed large flying monsters.